Are you still making...
I think he's asleep now.
Once, just once, I would like to finish a meal around here without that kid yelling his head off.
He's only 4 years old.
I know how old he is, Sheila. I tried to reach you this afternoon. I thought maybe you could line up a sitter and we could go out to a movie. They're still making them, you know.
I had to take Jody to the pediatrician.
What is it this time?
I told you he's going to need special shoes.
He needs special shoes and I need $50. And the coffee's like ice.
I'll heat some up.
Mommy!
Not this time, Sheila.
He's having nightmares.
I don't care about his nightmares.
There was a dog in the
I
park.
don't care about any dog in the park. It's always something. The kid opens his mouth and off you run. Well, it's going to stop right here and right now. You're staying here with me.
Colby.
Mommy!
Heat up the coffee.
Don't do this, Colby.
And any more bills you run up on that kid, I want to be told first. You understand?
He's not that kid. He's our son.
Mommy!
Get back to your room, do you hear me? Get back to bed!
Darling. That's right, darling. Go on back. I'll be up in a minute to get you dressed.
I'm warning you, Sheila.
I'm going to dress Jody, and then I'm going to leave.
Just like that.
I want a divorce. And no, it's not just like that. It gets worse every time. It gets more vicious and more hostile. Oh, Colby, I just don't understand you anymore.
Okay, tramp.
What did you say?
You walk out on me and I'll sue you for adultery.
What? Oh, you're sick. You're really sick.
You heard me, Sheila. Adultery.
That is insane. I have never looked at another man.
Maybe you haven't, but you're still a tramp and you know it.
Now, Daddy, come on. You know that's not a word.
Look it up.
Okay. Not that I think you cheat.
Perfect. Take the rest of the afternoon off.
Thank you very much. It's after 6 o'clock. Owen Marshall's office. Yes.
Kamichi. South American bird.
Oh, hello.
Now, how did you know that?
I remember.
Ah, my dear, I once defended an Alabama Kamichi against a Yankee woodpecker. Civil suit. Regular Civil War.
Yes, he's here.
48 points. I'll never catch up.
Fear not, my
Just
dear.
a minute. Mr. Marshall, it's your niece calling long distance.
Oh. Sheila? Oh, what a nice surprise.
Oh, it's good to hear your voice.
Nice to hear yours, too. How's everything?
Well, Jody and I are staying at Dad's.
Sheila, is anything wrong?
Yes, I'm afraid it is. Colby and I filed for divorce.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm very sorry.
Uncle Owen, I know how busy you are, but if it's at all possible, I need your help.
Oh, now, honey, I know you're upset and I'd do anything for you. You know that. But, well, a divorce action... I mean, there must be a competent attorney in town.
No, it's not as simple as that. You see, Colby is claiming that Jody isn't his son.
I see.
Can you come? Please.
Of course. talk about it now?
I was all steel knots inside until you got here. But now that you're here, thanks for coming. Do you want some cake?
Not at the moment, thanks. Oh.
I don't know how to start.
Colby's charge.
Adultery.
I have to know, is there any possible basis for it?
Some people will see it that way.
Why?
Uncle Owen, there's something very special about Jody.
Well, not that I don't agree with you. That doesn't answer my question, does it?
Jody was born of artificial insemination.
I see.
We'd been trying for about a year. And then after the usual tests, our doctor, Dr. Harding, determined that Colby was deficient. He explained to us about artificial insemination, that it was a medical procedure to facilitate pregnancy. I really didn't know anything about it, except for a few pretty sorry jokes I'd heard.
When you say deficient, do you mean he was sterile?
Yes, it was necessary to use a donor's sperm. But Colby agreed.
But his accusations.
I know. At first I didn't know what he meant. It wasn't until Arthur Kramer, who's my attorney here, filed the papers for divorce that I realized he was serious about adultery. You see, Colby is claiming fraud, that he was tricked into the procedure and into being named Jody's father by Dr. Harding. And Uncle Owen, I can tell you one thing. Dr. Harding would never trick anybody into anything.
Now tell me about the marriage. What happened? When did the trouble begin?
Well, it was about 2 years after Jody was born. Colby all of a sudden started acting, I don't know, I guess the word is irrational. He'd had flashes of unhappiness before, and his easy charm was gone. And, moods of depression. But suddenly, he became completely possessive of me. And completely unreasonable where Jody was concerned.
How so?
Well, one night, Jody had a fever, and Colby had made a dinner date with his boss. And he insisted that I leave Jody with a babysitter. I finally gave in. When we got home that night, there was a doctor here, and Jody was in convulsions. And ever after that, Colby was paranoid in his jealousy of Jody. Oh, I just don't understand it at all. Sometimes I wonder if it really was my fault.
Anything you can find on the books dealing with artificial insemination. Hearings, trials, appeals.
That would be under state law.
Try heterology. That's the technical name.
Right, anything else?
Not for now. I'll phone tomorrow. If you want to reach me before then, I'll be back here at 4 my time. Yeah. Bye, Jess. Dr. Harding?
That's right.
They told me you'd be out here, giving the football team a checkup. I'm Owen Marshall.
Oh, yes, of course. Sheila told me you'd be coming by. Will you sit down?
Oh, thank you.
I guess you have some questions for me.
Yes, a few.
Too bad about Colby and all this trouble. Never should have happened.
Well, how did you become involved, Doctor?
Well, as I recall, Sheila was very upset when she came to me with this problem. Both of them wanting a child and not being able. She started blaming it on herself until the tests proved that it was Colby's problem. And then when she was set and having a child through AI, that's our term for artificial insemination. Well, I talked to Colby about it, and he agreed.
Morning, Doc.
Oh, hi, Eddie. Tell the coach I'll be there in a while, huh?
Okay.
AI. Could you explain the exact procedure in Colby's case?
Yes, first I arranged for a donor with the same physical and ethnic characteristics as Colby. Then I collected his semen and introduced it later into the prospective mother. It's all become pretty routine.
He signed a statement agreeing to this?
Yes. I have it on file in my office.
Now, what about the birth certificate? Who's listed as the father?
Colby?
Isn't that a contradiction? I mean, technically, he couldn't father the child.
Yes, but it's customary. Takes care of any question about the child's legitimacy and legal rights. Since Colby didn't raise any objections, I just did what had to be done.
That's quite a responsibility on your part.
Well, yes, but responsibility is just another word for treating a patient. The only other alternative would have been to name John Doe as father and brand Jody as illegitimate. Well, I better get to work. We can talk later, huh?
Thanks for your time.
I don't think that Sheila has too much to worry about. I don't see how Colby can claim that he was tricked into it.
Doctor, have you considered your own position in all this?
Yes, Mr. Marshall, I have. I guess that's my problem, isn't it?
Hello, Sheila.
I thought I'd surprise you.
Well, is anything wrong?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's the nursery school. Mr. Calder phoned from the bank this morning. He said that they're holding up the loan until after the trial.
He told you why?
Yes, because of the delicate circumstances and the loan committee. It's just like Colby said. In Chapman Park, a divorce is practically a scandal. And mine is...
I find that hard to believe.
Yes, I would have too. Except this morning I got some phone calls. I stopped answering after the third one. Adulteress. There's a penalty in this state for women like you, Mrs. Arnold. Prison, Mrs. Arnold.
Telephone for Owen Marshall.
Excuse me. Hello?
Hello, Owen. I've got that information for you.
Oh, good. Listen, Jess, how soon could you get out here?
Well, first thing in the morning, I guess. What happened?
Well, it doesn't make much sense, but it's blown all out of proportion. And frankly, I need all the help I can get.
Well, as of last year, there were over 200,000 children born of artificial insemination.
I had no idea.
It's not just the numbers. It's an enormous legal mess. Just a very few states have ever ruled on the legitimacy of the procedure.
What's the precedent?
Well, there is none. For every state that approves AI and names the husband as the legal father, well, there's another that finds it in conflict with accepted morality. And the mother winds up an adulteress and the child illegitimate.
What about in this jurisdiction?
Well, they've never had a case dealing with it. There's no law on the books.
Well, there's another complication. Dr. Harding. Technically, he entered into a conspiracy to falsify the birth certificate.
An English court gave a physician 3 years for the same thing.
I'll explain his options, John.
Who can explain Sheila's husband? Why he's behaving like this? I mean, trying to brand her.
Well, I've learned one thing, Jess. You can never pin down why people behave the way they do in any given situation. Now, maybe with Colby, his ego was shattered when Sheila walked out on him, and this is his way of striking back. Then there's the whole matter of his sterility. Obviously, that's been gnawing at him for quite a while.
Personally, I couldn't care less how people decide to have children. That's between them.
What, Mr. Calder?
Well, unfortunately, this has now become a matter of public opinion. Word's getting around about this rather unusual situation, and, well, if it were up to me, I'd grant Mrs. Arnold a loan, but, again, but. Takes the loan committee's approval. And as you can see, we're just a rather small conservative bank.
But every bank's made up of individuals.
Well, that's right. And the committee, individuals, feel that due to the, rather special nature of Mrs. Arnold's enterprise, well, should she come off poorly in this case, parents might have second thoughts about registering their children. And that could make for a very risky loan. And we are talking about business. It's the nature of the beast.
Hi.
Hi.
And welcome if you can stand the smell of all this paint.
It smells good. Looks good. You need a hand?
No, but I would like to know what Mr. Calder had to say. Bad?
They're holding back on the loan. It's bank policy at this stage of the game.
Not to mention other things, like attitude.
Well, that's our job now. Showing some people that they're not threatened.
And yours is hanging in there. Keep slapping on that paint.
Oh, I'm not quitting, Jess. Although I have thought of it. Take Jody and run. Make things easier on everybody.
There must be a reason you don't.
Roots, I guess. And just plain orneriness. And fear. And hope. All combined. I don't know. Just knowing that this is my home. This is where I belong. And stay. Jody, me, home. It's as simple as that.
Owen. Hi.
Hello, Colby.
How are you?
Fine.
Boy, it's been a long time.
4 years.
That long. How's Sheila?
She's all right.
I've tried to see her, you know. And Jody, is he all right?
Yes, he's fine.
Good. Boy, I really miss him. But, well, Sheila insists on having it this way. Listen, Owen, I hate to appear fighting back the way I appear to be fighting, but you understand she didn't leave me any choice. I mean, after all, she walked out on me. Now, I know you have some questions to ask me.
Well, I think we should wait for your attorney. He is coming.
No, he's not. I told him it wouldn't be necessary, that you were family. But you are, as far as I'm concerned, till we get into that courtroom. If we have to, that is. I guess we have to.
Why don't we sit down?
Fine. Oh, and I wish you would be very frank with me. I mean, this whole thing is out in the open now.
Well, I've talked to Dr. Harding.
Uh-huh. And he told you that he told me 5 years ago that I was sterile. Deficient, right?
That's right.
And I'm telling you now that he never said anything of the sort.
Then,
Well, go ahead and ask it. You have a job to do, I understand that.
and why did you agree to the procedure? The artificial insemination?
Because he told me that I was only partially deficient. He said that my count, you know, sperm count, could be built up, strengthened by collecting various samples, concentrating them, and then introducing them medically to Sheila. Now, that's a mouthful, but that's what the man told me.
Colby, are you saying that he never mentioned another donor?
I'm saying that, yes, because that is the absolute truth.
Well, what this all boils down to is the truth. I mean, your word against his.
Only if you leave out the other doctor.
The other doctor?
Dr. Parker Edwards. Maybe you should talk to him. No, correction, you really should talk to him, Owen. Because I don't want to see you wasting any more of your time. Honest.
About Colby's visit, Dr. Edwards.
Yes. Nice man. I like him. Great warmth. When I treated him, I found that he was totally sterile and had been that way for some time.
How long?
Oh, 10 years at the least, maybe more.
Are you absolutely positive of that, Doctor?
Without a doubt.
How did he take the finding?
Pretty hard. He wouldn't accept it until I repeated the tests. Then he told me about Dr. Harding. You know, Gerald Harding. How Colby had agreed to go along with him on the artificial insemination because Harding had told him he could be a father. Well, Mr. Marshall, I don't want to rush him, but this is my day to take the children out to our place. My wife and I are leaving for New York City tomorrow night, and then for a cruise in the Caribbean. Mrs. Edwards and her blasted sea air and shuffleboard.
Doctor, have you known Colby Arnold very long?
Oh, not really. I did know his wife when they were living up in Glenville, where I practiced 2 days a week. She was a patient of mine.
Sheila?
No, his first wife, Linda. They were actually married only a very short time.
You think you know a man, and then you discover that you don't know anything about him at all. Married before. He never said a word about being married before.
Did he ever mention having lived in Glenville?
No.
Where exactly is it?
It's about 55 miles north.
Now, Dr. Edwards, you knew that he treated him.
Yes, a couple of years ago. But that was a kidney infection, nothing more.
Now, Sheila, to go back, when you and Colby were both seeing Dr. Harding, didn't you ever discuss his condition with him? I mean, what Dr. Harding told him about the sterility?
No. That was between Colby and Dr. Harding. I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to make him feel like he was to blame. It was just sort of taken for granted.
Now, this deposition's lethal. Colby's got an answer for everything.
So it would seem, in that warm way of his.
But you know, if his story holds up, that Dr. Harding is lying, straight down the line. And Jody won't have a father or right of inheritance, to say nothing of child support. And Sheila would be an adulteress by proxy.
Except for one thing. I have to believe that Dr. Harding is telling the truth.
Yeah, but the facts, Owen. Dr. Edwards' statement.
But the fact is that Harding has no logical reason to lie. He'd have everything to lose and nothing to gain.
And Harding is our Achilles heel. I mean, we need his testimony, but once we put him under oath, they can nail him for falsifying that birth certificate.
Now, we've got to go after Colby's credibility. Prove that he lied.
Yeah, but how?
By talking to everybody who knows him. Really knows him. Find a line on his Achilles heel. It's the only play we've got.
Oh, hello, Ellen. Come on in.
I thought maybe you could use a little help.
Oh, no, but I could use the company. How do you like the curtains? Are they straight?
Oh, they look fine.
Fine enough. How's Timmy?
Aside from 2 more cavities that need filling, great.
And that handsome husband of yours.
Bob's okay.
Are you sure? Ellen, is something wrong?
Oh, what's the use? We've been friends too long to play games. What I really came to tell you is that Bob's gone ahead and enrolled Timmy in another nursery school.
Oh.
I know we planned on Timmy being here, but I never counted on Bob being so exasperating.
Why should he be any different? I mean, join the crowd. Lucy Gallo phoned this morning. She changed her mind about her Andrea.
Look, Sheila, if it was up to me...
Ellen, I understand. Really, I do.
Why don't you just keep the deposit?
No, thanks. I'll send it back in the mail.
Well, I'll be in touch.
Oh, hello, Uncle Owen. I'm sorry, I should have introduced you. We take classes at the Y together, we sew together, we babysit for each other. But then her husband decides that he doesn't want their 4-year-old son contaminated by the evil influences that lurk here. If you think that I'm feeling terribly sorry for myself, you're right. But after what's gone on, I think I'm entitled to a few paranoid moments.
Granted.
Uncle Owen, will you tell me something honestly? What do you think my chances are?
I think we're in for the fight of our lives. You read Colby's deposition. We don't have any answers yet.
Can I do anything to help?
When the time comes. We've asked for an early trial date.
Good. I don't think I can go on like this much longer, not being able to plan anything from one day to the next. Oh, I want it to be over. One way or the other.
Right. That's agreeable to us, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you.
Owen Marshall?
That's right.
I'm Justin Campbell, Colby Arnold's lawyer.
Oh, I was just about to phone your office. I've been checking with the calendar clerk. The case ahead of us was settled, and they bumped us up to tomorrow morning.
We're ready.
Fine.
I think you're making a mistake. There's going to be some embarrassing publicity. If Sheila were my client, I wouldn't subject her to it. She's the one who has to live here after you leave.
Well, so does your son. That would leave him without child support or legal rights.
That's true, but Colby's deposition doesn't leave much room for doubt.
All the same, Dr. Harding doesn't strike me as a liar.
Well, you're an outsider. I have the advantage of seeing it from a more realistic aspect. Harding is a close friend of Sheila's family. He delivered Sheila. Out of loyalty to her, he helped her achieve what she wanted. Maybe his motives were beyond question, but not his actions.
Well, that's interesting, Mr. Campbell, but hypothetical.
All right, let's be practical. You place him under oath, I'm going to have to go after him. That could mean his career, his reputation, maybe even his freedom.
That's assuming, A, that he's prosecuted, and B, that he's found guilty.
Please feel free to use my law library. But I don't think it'll help much. In fact, if you check some adjacent state court decisions on their attitude towards artificial insemination, you just might save everyone a lot of grief, and yourself a lot of time.
Mr. Campbell, I learned a long time ago that 2/3 of the law is marking time. See you later.
Well, Dr. Edwards was cooperative, but positive. I don't think we're going to be able to shake it.
Have you got dates, notes, lab reports?
Verse, book, and chapter, all tied up with a nice blue ribbon. Right along with his tickets. He and his wife are taking off tonight.
What about the others?
No hint of scandal. To hear them talk, Colby comes off like the world's oldest Boy Scout. I don't think they're going to accept a deal.
Well, neither are we. I want you to take a run up to Glenville. Look up that ex-wife of his.
Well, the trial is tomorrow. How long can you keep it going?
Give me enough reason, I'll do a rain dance.
If Dr. Harding had explained the real situation, I never would have agreed to it.
Does that also include the matter of the birth certificate, Mr. Arnold?
Yes, sir, it does. If he had told me at the time that I was completely sterile and he was planning to use a donor...
Your Honor, I move to strike everything after yes, sir, it does.
The jury will disregard the witness's answer. A simple yes or no is sufficient.
In other words, were you deceived into believing you were the real father?
Yes, sir, I was.
No further questions.
Your cross-examination, Mr. Marshall?
Mr. Arnold, there's one thing that particularly interests me. When you found out 2 years later that you were sterile, as you allege, did you mention this to your wife?
No, I didn't.
Will you tell us why?
Well, at the time, I couldn't even think clearly. I was so upset. It was only later when she sued for divorce that I realized the terrible injustice.
I see. I have no further questions.
Your Honor, because Dr. Edwards is not available to us at this time as a witness, I should like to place into evidence a signed certified deposition by him taken by Mr. Jess Brandon of Mr. Marshall's office.
To what purpose, Mr. Campbell?
It corroborates my client's testimony concerning his visits with Dr. Edwards.
No objections.
I'd call your first witness, Mr. Marshall.
Doctor, I have to warn you again. Once I put you on that stand, I can't protect you.
Thanks, but I'm all she's got standing against Colby's lies.
Dr. Gerald Harding. Dr. Harding, how long have you been practicing medicine?
For 27 years now, right here in Chapman Park. I was born here and I practice here.
Are you familiar with artificial insemination?
Yes, I am. I delivered a paper on the subject to a symposium for the State Medical Association in 1968.
Now, Doctor, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with the subject, would you describe the various aspects of artificial insemination?
Well, when the mother has a problem, or the husband is just partially deficient, his semen is collected and medically injected. We call this AIH, the H standing for husband.
And when the husband is sterile?
Then we use a donor. It's called AID, and the D stands for donor.
And in Mr. Arnold's case?
Well, I explained to him that he was sterile, and he agreed to a donor.
Did he also agree to being named as the father on the birth certificate?
Yes, he did.
Is such an entry on the birth certificate unusual?
Not at all. It's customary among doctors in order to protect the innocent child from being deprived of his legal rights. Even though they know, in fact, that the husband is not the father, it's usually handled through a third party.
Oh, who would that be?
The obstetrician. He usually doesn't know the situation, so he normally registers the husband as the father.
Can you tell us why that was not done in this case?
Well, it couldn't be. See, I delivered the baby. I just took on that responsibility.
Your witness.
When you signed that birth certificate, you certified it as a true document, didn't you?
I just did what had to be done.
Didn't what had to be done amount to a lie?
All right, I lied. But for a good reason.
Now, if you admit lying about the birth certificate, isn't it just possible you lied to Colby Arnold about his ability to procreate?
Absolutely not. There'd be no point in lying about that.
Unless, of course, you knew how badly Mrs. Arnold wanted a baby and being a close friend of her family.
Objection, Your Honor. That's pure conjecture and totally irrelevant.
Sustained.
Mrs. Linda Chase?
Yes?
I'm Jess Brandon. I'm an attorney. I apologize for just dropping by, but if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
What about?
Your ex-husband, Colby Arnold. Well, I'm representing his present wife in a divorce action.
I see. What's that got to do with me?
Well, let's say it has to do with another woman and child who need your help.
Look, I didn't even know that Colby was remarried. And, well, I'd rather not be involved in any of this. I'm sure you understand. Now I'm busy.
Mrs. Chase, I repeat, this is very important.
All right? I met Colby a long time ago. He charmed me into marrying him. After a few months, the charm wore thin, very thin. A year later, we were divorced.
Did you have a child with him?
No. No, I didn't.
Did you divorce him?
What difference does any of this make?
You know, I'd really prefer to do this in an informal way, off the record. It's more convenient than having you appear in court as a material witness.
But it's past. I want to forget it. I'm married to a wonderful man now. He wouldn't understand about Colby. Can't you please just leave us alone?
I wish I could, but I can't. Look, I promise you, nothing you say will be used without your permission.
All right. Let's talk inside.
To go back, Dr. Harding, who was the donor?
Objection, irrelevant.
I can't give you that information, and you should know that, Mr. Campbell. Disregarding the doctor-patient privilege, it's a matter of professional ethics.
In what respect?
Well, the donor's usually a medical student, paid the same as if he'd given a pint of blood. Giving the court his name in an AI case could cause great personal hardship.
Exactly how?
Well, if he, Mr. Arnold, walks out of this courtroom without any financial obligation, then this young man could be held personally responsible for Jody. Is that what you want to know?
I'm asking the questions here, Doctor.
Well, if it is, that's exactly why I'm not going to tell you.
Your Honor.
Just a moment, Mr. Kemp. Dr. Harding, I'm not so sure that the doctor-patient privilege applies here.
Well, the medical code says that a donor's identity should be known only to the physician. That's the way it is, and that's the way it must be, Your Honor.
All right, I'll accept that for now. However, the question may be reopened if the jury finds for Mr. Arnold.
I'm through with the witness, Your Honor. But I'd like the right to recall if necessary.
I see no objection. You may step down.
I just tried a call from Jess.
Jess said what?
Just something about a rain dance. He said you'd know.
At this time, I would like to call Mrs. Arnold to the stand. Before you were married, how did your husband feel about having children?
He wanted them very much.
When did the subject come up?
Very shortly after we were married. I said I wanted a family, and he said that he was an only child, and he'd missed having brothers and sisters.
Objection, Your Honor, on the basis of irrelevancy. It's not important whether Mr. Arnold wanted or didn't want children. The issue here is that he was gulled into believing he was the legitimate father.
I asked the court's indulgence to establish a pattern of behavior which will prove that Mr. Arnold and not Dr. Harding resorted to fraud.
Objection overruled. But I trust Counselor will not keep us in suspense too long.
Your witness?
No questions.
You may step down. At this time, Your Honor, I should like to be sworn in as a material witness and questioned by my associate, Mr. Kramer.
This is highly irregular, Your Honor. Mr. Marshall is related to his client by marriage and can hardly be classified as an unbiased witness.
And to what purpose is this, Mr. Marshall?
I have corroborative testimony concerning Mr. Arnold's desire to provide Mrs. Arnold with children.
In the interest of saving time, my client readily acknowledges that he wanted children and promised them.
I am pleased to note Mr. Arnold's unqualified agreement. At this time, Your Honor, I should like to request a 1-hour recess, at the end of which I hope to satisfy the court's natural curiosity as to my line of questioning.
Objection. The counselor is obviously stalling for time.
Well, it's almost noon. We didn't take a morning recess, so objection overruled. This court is in recess until 1:30, at which time I will take you at your word, Mr. Marshall.
All right.
I know you're trying, but what can you hope to prove?
Well, Jess must be onto something, or he wouldn't have asked me to keep the ball in play.
But that judge wants answers. Oh, I just feel like everything is closing in.
Well, when a person's right, he's got the edge. A kind of psychological advantage.
It hasn't helped so far.
No, but I've been watching Colby. He's afraid of something. Any luck?
It's like pulling teeth.
No wonder he never mentioned his first wife. Jess, you're on.
Your Honor, I would like to recall Mr. Arnold to the witness stand.
The witness is reminded he is still under oath. Proceed.
Mr. Arnold, I'd like to give you the opportunity to change your statement regarding Dr. Harding.
No, thank you.
Objection, Your Honor. Question is argumentative and has obviously been asked and answered. Mr. Brandon is obviously trying to intimidate the witness.
On the contrary, I'm offering him an opportunity to spare himself considerable embarrassment and possible perjury.
Objection sustained. Please proceed, Mr. Brandon.
Mr. Arnold, I'd like to take you back some 10 years. Do you recall a Dr. Weiss?
Doctor who?
A Dr. Carl Weiss, a general practitioner from Glenville.
The name sounds familiar.
Well, now, isn't it a fact that he treated you for something rather personal?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about a disease you were suffering from at the time. A venereal disease. A condition which was discovered after you infected someone else.
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
No. It's completely irrelevant to the matter at issue here, Your Honor. I offer in evidence certified copies of medical records from the County Health Commission, attesting that Dr. Carl Weiss, as required by law, reported a patient with a case of venereal disease, whose complications led to that patient, Mr. Colby Arnold, becoming completely sterile. Now, it is our contention that this proves beyond a doubt that when Colby Arnold led his wife to believe that he could provide her with a family, he knew he was sterile and, in fact, could never father. Now, obviously, it's Mr. Arnold and not Dr. Harding who engaged in fraud.
Order, please. Order.
Your Honor, at this time, we move that a divorce be granted to our client and that Colby Arnold assume his legal responsibilities to Jody Arnold.
Well, I'm inclined to grant the motion, but only insofar as and limited to granting the divorce to Mrs. Arnold. Because the matter of artificial insemination has never been raised in this state, the jury will decide on the factual issue of whether Mr. Arnold is legally bound to support the child.
Your Honor, I must respectfully accept. My client's case has already been proved by exposing Mr. Arnold's perjured testimony. I believe that Mr. Arnold should be held to be the father as a matter of law.
In anticipation of it, I have given due consideration to this ruling. Find it to be a question for the triers of fact, the jury. I will address myself to Mr. Arnold's perjury after the verdict. Your exception is noted.
But we won. Only now it's all turned around again.
No, we've eliminated Colby's charges. That's half the case. Now we've got to convince the jury about the rest.
But do you think really care about me or Jody?
I think they do.
And one of our own sister states has condemned artificial insemination as unnatural, immoral interference in the work of the Almighty. Each case I referred to has declared the wife an adulteress and the child illegitimate. Now, of course, I have no enmity toward Mrs. Arnold's child, or toward Mrs. Arnold, but I am speaking to you of the law, as interpreted by other honest, rational citizens. Once the mother consents to such an act, she consciously risks that child's future. I therefore appeal to you as intelligent, fair-minded people to release my client from any responsibility towards a child that bears not one single gene nor blood cell of his. That is not his child.
Mr. Marshall?
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't intend to go into the broader question of artificial insemination, its pros and its cons. That will ultimately be discussed and judged in the state legislature or in a court at the proper time. But if the eminent counsel for the defense would have you believe that your approval or disapproval of the entire matter of artificial insemination is at hand here and now, then I'm going to have to say to you and to him that he is wrong. The point of fact is that we are here to talk about two people, a woman and her young son, and also the man who until very recently acknowledged himself to be the boy's father. Now, what is the one, the only question to be decided on by you members of the jury? It is this. Does Mr. Colby Arnold, who, as you heard in earlier testimony, once told his wife that he wanted a child by whatever means, does Colby Arnold, to whom that wife delivered the child, now have the right to say to the child, I don't know you, I am not responsible for your welfare, I don't care what happens to you? Does he, ladies and gentlemen? in all conscience, have that right. Thank you.
Have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Thank you. And what is your verdict?
We find for the plaintiff, Sheila Arnold.
If only I'd known at the time, then maybe I could have coped with it. The marriage and everything.
Well, the way Colby acted, I doubt if his insecurities would have permitted him to deal with it.
But to take it out on Jody.
Well, that's what I mean. He needed help, but I doubt if he would have accepted it.
I talked to Judge Rankin. He says no problem on the child support payments. They can be put into a trust fund for Jody.
Good. That's the only way I'd take the money.
And about Dr. Harding?
Well, considering the circumstances, the judge feels that due to the void in the law on this issue, the DA won't pursue the matter. It's a job for the state lawmakers.
Well, I guess there's no excuse for me not getting back to work on the school.
Not when you have two such willing helpers.